Today we're going to be taking a look at Landbot.io. I'm going to be sharing with you my top 5 tips to kind of like supercharge the experience of your users when they are interacting with the chatbot that you built. Now, it doesn't matter if you are a beginner or an advanced user of Landbot, the tips should really offer something to everyone. They're going to go in like an ascending order of difficulty. So tip 1 is for beginners and tip 5 is like for advanced users. So without any further ado, let's go. Tip number 1, and this is really for people who are just starting out, and that is that your chatbot is primarily a form, or at least it's a healthy way to think about things. The number 1 priority that you have within your chatbot is to collect data. Yes, it's nice to actually provide data back, but the most important thing is to actually collect answers to questions. If you think about it that way, your trajectory of building chatbots will become so much smoother because you don't really need to think about conversations. You need to think about questions. As you can see here, we are looking at a chatbot that I'm building just for this demo. Essentially, it's a construction daily report bot that runs on WhatsApp, whose purpose is to basically collect data from workers on the ground of a construction company. My number 1 priority here is to ask questions. What is the project name? Because we're essentially getting reports from them, right? Which project did you work on? Who were the suppliers? How many full-time workers did they provide? Think about your chatbot as a fancy form. It will make your life so much easier down the line. Tip number 2, buttons are easier than text input. Now, when it comes to business WhatsApp, really that's not your family WhatsApp group. People want to get on with their lives, and requesting them to type in answers, especially when they don't need to, when we're not exactly collecting information that is like super valuable, it's not necessary. You want to use buttons. I've got this chatbot ready to go. I've got my phone screen over here, so I'm just gonna press let's test. You're gonna get 2 choices here, either the daily project report or the submit expense claim. They are buttons. Typically, like with SMS, you would be usually required to say yes or no, or like Y or N, type something in. It's so much easier with Landbot and WhatsApp to just create buttons and get people to just click on an answer. Here, I can just go ahead and say what I need. So test, Acme, and you can continue asking them for answers, really only when necessary. So I'm just gonna say 2. Did Acme provide any equipment to the test site? Yes or no? No, that's it for today. And that's it. Use buttons. They are gonna make the experience so much better for your users. It's time for tip number 3. We're gonna get into a little bit more of an advanced territory. If I was to put a title on tip number 3, that would be loops, or using looping to create line items. By now, you've probably already kind of understood that I like to treat my chatbots as forms, just fancy forms that I can control. The bane of forms is line items. In other words, just like we have here where we're collecting the daily project information from our user, you can see here where I have my quick reply buttons, right? Here, where I'm asking them, great, once they've submitted like one project's details, I'm asking them what would they like to do next. Again, I'm using reply buttons, and I have 3 options. Yes, new project report, and that's it for today. So over here, when it comes to the new project report, all I'm really doing here is I'm taking the user back to that original message. It's kind of hard to do with traditional forms, or form builders rather, to take people back and submit yet again one more round of questions and answers. This way, by connecting your buttons to another point in the conversation that was earlier than where you are now, it's a fantastic way to actually collect more and more and more, and like infinite rounds of information essentially from your users. Tip number 4 is incorporating third-party databases, like my personal favorite is Airtable, into your Landbot workflow. For example, we were just talking about line items. First and foremost, when a new conversation gets started, like somewhere over here, immediately go ahead and create an Airtable row for that conversation. Press Airtable, set up this particular module, you have to connect your account, and by the way, we've done a video on this, so do check out the description for that video where I show you how to actually set this up within Airtable. Tip here is use the custom integrations that you get with Landbot to your advantage, because here I can create my report, and once I come down to this part where I'm actually collecting line items, in other words, I'm getting the combination of the project name, the supplier, and so forth. That is one little chunk of information about that general report. So I would be creating another row every single time my user passes through this little checkpoint, because afterwards I'm actually asking them, hey, do you want to submit a new report? Great. And they are being taken back to this, okay, let's get started message. And I'm collecting another line item. By that time, I'm basically stacking up line items inside of my Airtable database. This is kind of obvious, of course, using Airtable or Google Sheets, but you have to make use of what you have, and you have so much stuff going on with Landbot. It's time for tip number 5. We are getting into the more complex stuff here. So if you are not super familiar with what an API is or what API documentation stands for, that's fine. Maybe you need a little bit more practice. But for the people who know what I'm talking about, Landbot has got a very good, extensive API. One part that's kind of missing from the API, or it wasn't really clear to me, is how do you force an opt-in? In other words, how can I opt in a conversation with a user via API? Because technically you can opt in via the inbox. In other words, I can initiate a conversation via the inbox, and that's all very well and good. But in a bunch of other scenarios, I won't be able to do that. The idea is that you can opt in a conversation, you can opt in a contact via the API. It took me a while to find this, but there is a article on how to do that. It's not super straightforward, because you kind of have to go into growth tools, you have to get the snippet that gets created, and then you can use that as a post endpoint, as you can see here, to basically send that new person that you've never contacted before, essentially opt them in via that action. It is what it is. Bonus tip! Use Dialogflow in conjunction with Landbot and automation. If you've never heard of Dialogflow before, essentially it's a Google product. It's been around for a very long time. It's kind of like a pre-AI AI that uses machine learning to create conversations. And the beauty of it, unlike AI, it won't hallucinate. It's a very easy, convenient way to make sure that your Landbot chatbot will have a more natural response, because in this tip list, I've been kind of hammering the point that your chatbot is primarily a form. With Dialogflow, we're enabling a very nice controlled conversation using Dialogflow. In conjunction with automation, you can make this thing fly, because using make.com, you can make sure that any kind of new question gets a response created, even potentially via AI, and gets stored within Dialogflow. Technically, that's an oversimplification, but Dialogflow, it's that key to having a controlled conversation that is natural within Landbot, that does not require you to essentially pre-create all the questions and create a script. Do check out Dialogflow, and by the way, check out Landbot Academy, fantastic resource from Landbot in order to learn how to use Landbot effectively, and the course for Dialogflow, chef's kiss. Thank you so much for watching this little list of top Landbot tips on how to kind of raise your game. I hope that I've answered some concerns and really got you excited about Landbot, or at least as excited as I am about the damn thing. That's it for me. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.